Welcome back to Black History Month stories with our amazing books. And this time we're going to do nonfiction.
Yes.
And we have an amazing collection of nonfiction, just so many different categories. But I wanted to start out with this book, Carriage Has No Color. And I really like this book because I think it talks about just the opportunities and the, I don't want to say contributions, but that our African American soldiers have had to America.
And this is World War II?
This is World War II, but in my family, our history goes back to the Civil War when I had an ancestor who ran away from his plantation in Virginia, and he fought in the Civil War. He fought with the colored troops, he fought for his freedom. And from that moment on, in every single war, we've had our relatives fought in those wars. And that's how we kind of found a lot about our history.
You have a family member that was a Tuskegee Airman?
Yes, I do, yeah. And so that's how we found out about our history, because on a draft card, that's when they have information about the soldier. And there wasn't a lot of written information about African American soldiers. So it's really kind of like, I have multiple books like this that tell the stories from, this is World War II, but we talk about other wars that African Americans participated in.
One of the difficulties in telling history, especially going before the Civil Rights Movement of African Americans, is so much of it was not written down. And this book, I actually heard about this book on NPR. I heard the author, and the woman's a professor at, I believe, Harvard. And they found this pillowcase with this embroidery on it at a tag sale. And they started hunting for this journey of Ashley's sack. That said there was a handful of pecans and a lock of hair. And it was for a slave daughter that had been sold off away from her mother, who tried to send her love in this pillowcase.
Right, and she put those things in a pillowcase.
And so then the author tried to track this down through, and they have a basic idea of probably where she came from.
Right.
But it's really hard because...
It is hard because there's no written records. And so for my family, when we did genealogy, we got to go back to the Civil War. The draft cards were very helpful that they had fought in the wars. And also my family was from Kentucky and Tennessee. And in those upper southern states, they did keep records of African Americans.
Which is helpful to, because so much of that is blank because that documentation just was not there.
So we have lots of amazing nonfiction stories. One of the new books that we just got.
Yes. I had a student recommend this book to me, and it is about the first all-black rowing team in Chicago at a high school.
I love that.
And it is just wonderful. Yes. And I had a student who read it who said, Ms. Conley, you have to read this book. And I read it, and I was like, this is amazing. I should have done crew. So this
and
is
I
also
love
for all
the
the
sports
crew people.
books as well.
Yes. And then I actually found this book looking for Michelle Obama's first biography, Becoming. And I found this and went, there's a book about gardening? How do I not know this? And this is about how she established the White House vegetable garden and all of the people that participated in it. And it has just wonderful pictures. And I love this book. And if you listen to it on audio, she reads it. And she has this delightful voice. So that's a really wonderful one.
And the last, The Warmth of Other Suns.
Isabel Wilkerson.
Yeah.
She is the first African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for journalism. And this book is about the Great Migration of African-Americans coming from the South up to the North. And she tells it through, I think it's 4 characters that are all real people that she interviewed over time to get their whole stories about how they came to.
I mean, we talked about Brown Girl Dreaming. That's a migration story.
Yes.
And what happens in the migration, the kids go back in the summer and how it trickles over and
Yeah.
And why did they end up in certain places?
Yes.
Why did they end up in Buffalo? Why did they end up in Detroit?
Right.
Why did they end up in Chicago? Why did they end up in certain places?
Yes, so I'm from Flint, in the Flint-Detroit corridor, where there's lots of African-American folks. And the trains that came from the South only allowed black people on certain trains.
Yeah.
And based on those is where these people migrated
because they wanted to go as far away from the South as they could. So if this train stops in Detroit, that's
where I'm going to get off.
If it stops in Buffalo, I'm getting off.
Or Chicago.
And so Chicago.
So yeah, that was very powerful to me.
Yeah, and that's American history.
It is. That's welcome to the chance of opportunity. So we have some wonderful nonfiction books. We highly recommend that you come and check them out about telling Black stories in their own voices about Black history.
For sure, own voices.